Welcome to the Outdoors and Holistic Project, the podcast edition with City Girl in Nature. My name's Kusia. I'm joined today with Black Joy Wellness. Please, let me know a bit more about yourself.
So I'm Krista. I'm a wellness facilitator, pharmacist, and co-founder of Black Joy Wellness.
And I'm Georgie. I am a yoga instructor, a breathwork facilitator, a general wellness facilitator, and also on the side, I have a part-time marketing job as well. But generally, my wellness is my main thing.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for joining me today, guys.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. And I just love the name in itself, Black Joy Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you kind of come up with that name, and what is that, I guess?
Yeah, Black Joy Wellness, I think that really came from both Georgia and I bonded over our witnessing the lack of representation that exists in a lot of yoga and wellness spaces. And I think that means that as a Black person, when you walk into those spaces, you don't really feel that you belong. You don't really feel that you deserve to take up space in those environments. And then that can act as a deterrent for Black people wanting to use these practices to support their well-being. I think the joy aspect was because we really wanted to reclaim our joy. We feel that a lot of our stories are just filled with so much trauma and suffering, and we wanted people to come together and celebrate their origins, celebrate their backgrounds, and just find joy in that.
Yeah, and I think from a more somatic embodied perspective, we wanted people to step into their power as well, which I think when you experience joy, you naturally do that. And because if you think about it, from the moment we're born or even before we're born, we're bombarded with imprints and patterns of behavior that kind of dictate how we show up in the world. And that can be influenced by trauma, like Krista said, or circumstances, financial situation, epigenetics as well. Even trauma can be in our DNA. And I think we wanted to create spaces like this to move away from that narrative of oppression and move into hang on a minute, when we join in community, we can start to heal ourselves on a communal but also an individual level, and realize the power that what coming together does. And I think on a physiological level as well, when we do yoga, breathwork, sound healing, it starts to chip away at those limiting beliefs. We store a lot in our bodies, we store a lot of emotions and stuff in our bodies. So it's about shedding those, releasing those, so that we can step into how special we are and how magic we are.
That's really powerful that you say that, and I guess for me, this space is a women's only space, right? That you guys create, or am I correct to say that, or is there more to it?
So we actually we cater to both men and women, but we have an event coming up soon called Sacred Spaces. It's going to be a sisters circle. So we are doing a little bit more now, just for females, but for sisters. But previously our events have been both men and women.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's my mistake.
No, that's right.
But, I think it's really, really good that there is this space. But is there so it's just for people of color though?
Yeah.
So,
yes. Yes.
So that, how important is that, to have that space, for people of color or ethnic backgrounds?
I think it's life-changing, to be completely honest. I think our spaces are open to Black and Indigenous people of color, whether that's Black people from an African and Caribbean background, or Asian people. And that's even more significant when we think of these holistic practices like yoga, breathwork, and meditation, which actually have Indigenous origins that can be traced back to South Asia, that can even be traced back to Africa. So I think as a person of color, when you step into that space and you look around and think, I'm the only person of color here, I'm the only Black person here, it's a bit heartbreaking. And that was my experience for so many years when I first started doing yoga. And again, you just don't feel that you deserve to access that. So it's really important that as a person of color, you feel that you have that right. You feel that you can show up authentically as yourself. And I think touching back to, we've mentioned, healing and trauma. As people of color, we are so much more exposed to racialized stress and daily stressors that can be from experiencing discrimination or a perceived fear of discrimination, or witnessing discrimination and the traumatic events that can happen to Black people here in the UK or around the world. And yoga is a really powerful tool that can help us to heal those traumas, both on like a mental and a physical health perspective. So I have a background in mental health and psychology, so it's really important for me to make a practice that has such transformative impact on our mental health more accessible to Black people and people of color, because in our communities it's something that's really overlooked. We've talked about stereotypes, and mental health is something that's commonly just disregarded, or if you try to speak about it, people will look at you funny and be like, that's a white people thing. Like, what do you mean, mental health? So it's about breaking down those stereotypes, opening up a space where people can share experiences and not feel isolated. So connection is such a big theme in like the spaces that we share.
And I think tapping into as well, like our indigenous wisdom as well. Like if you think about even like what you do like on the land and in nature, like when we connect with that, we start to tap into the wisdom of our ancestors and what they knew, and allowing space to do that, and to recognize that we have so much knowledge already. We have all the answers within us, and it's helping them help themselves.
I think that's so important. Like you guys brought up such, like, just in the space of what you just said, a lot of things to pick through, you know, like trauma and, you know, having that space, because even for myself, you know, I have experienced yoga classes and spaces where I have felt like, you know, this isn't a space for me. And I guess it is very welcoming to come into a space where, you know, you see people that look like you, and you automatically feel safe. And you automatically feel like this is something I can do. You know, like there's just that sense of security, I guess. And then to add the layers of what you're saying as well, in terms of, you know, this actually is related to our history, you know, also what you're also saying too. So in terms of that is part of our, I guess, reclaiming, you know, reclaiming back some of our knowledge that has been lost along the way, whether it's, you know, we've migrated to the UK or, you know, like just the journey of, you know, some of the things that we all collectively have experienced as diasporas, and you know, like coming together. Just speaking about it is making me so happy and going through it, because it's actually very needed, you know, and it's not something that is out there. But how long have you lot been actually doing it for?
So we only started last August. Yeah. So we both been yoga instructors for longer than that. But yeah, we met, I think, beginning of last year, and then
was it December 2020?
Oh, was it?
No. December 22 or January 23. So like, sometime
last
year.
So yeah, we met, and then like a few months later, after we kind of got to know each other a little bit more, then Krista approached being like, I think I have an idea. And I'm like, I'm here for it. And then we decided to launch it. And our first event was actually completely free. It was in the park. It was summer last year.
Yeah, it was August.
Our
anniversary is coming up.
Brockwell Park. It was in Brockwell Park.
Yeah.
Cool. But it was actually the same day as a Pokemon festival.
Which is so funny. We did not know this. It's actually so hilarious. So it's our very first event, and like we had so many people like sign up because it was free. We didn't have as many show up in person that day, but it was still like such a small, like tight-knit group. But on the day, Georgie got there, and like she's trying to set up, and she texts me and she's like, there's a Pokemon Fest going on. Like, you know, because we had initially like chosen a spot, but that spot was taken because of the Pokemon Fest. So at the last minute we had to like find somewhere else. But you know what, in the end everything came together.
It worked
so perfectly. Everything just fell into place. It was so natural. And because it was in the park, like we had that added element of connecting to nature, like seeing the skies, the clouds, feeling the like breeze on our skin.
And the sun came out. It was raining at the beginning.
Yes.
And then just when we were like starting our practice, the sun came out.
Like just for us.
Yeah.
It was just meant to be.
It was amazing.
So yeah, it's been almost a year.
Wow. It's quite new then.
It's quite new, but like to our surprise, it kind of popped off pretty quickly. Like I would say we've pretty much been sold out
For
almost
most
every
of the
event
events that we have.
Yeah, and we're starting to cultivate a community now. Like we're starting to see the same people coming back to our events, and people really gaining something from it. I think these spaces were so much more needed than I think I realized when going into it.
Exactly.
And I feel kind of proud of us. I'm quite like really
I'm
happy
so proud
with,
of us.
with it.
And I'm so happy like we get to do it together because again we bonded so much over like our shared experiences. And I think how like transformative it was for both of our well-being. So we're just so passionate about like bringing that to other people.
Yeah.
And even what you're saying about community and having the same people come back. And I just love, you know, when we have an event and see people chatting amongst themselves, or like, for example, we might have had people who've like moved here to the UK from like the US or whatever, and then getting to meet people or meeting somebody else who's moved from the US, or like when they share experiences, if they're going through something challenging, realize that somebody else is going through something similar and they can bond through that. And again, just realize that then you're never alone.
And so how did you guys actually meet? I'd love to know, because like, I'm hearing you guys say that's how we first bonded, but like,
So
how did it kind of come about?
I slid into her inbox on Facebook. I don't know
Facebook.
I know, exactly. I don't know if people still meet on Facebook these days, but anyways, so again, going back to like the lack of representation that we've spoken about, Georgie had created this Facebook group for Black, Asian and minority ethnic yogis, and I saw it because again, I had done my training earlier in 2022, and I was intentionally seeking out spaces where there would just be more Black yogis of color, and I wasn't really finding that in like, you know, the general yoga classes. So I was searching on Instagram, I was searching on Facebook, and I came across Georgie. So I messaged her. And also a separate project that I was and still / am working on is just speaking to women of color about their experience navigating their mental health and how yoga can be beneficial to that. So that's why I reached out to her, and she agreed to talk to me. The rest is history.
Yeah, we had like a video call and then just like got to know each other a little bit, and then just from that we were in touch. And the reason I created that Facebook group is for the exact same reason. I was like showing up to these yoga classes and I was like, there's nobody that looks like me. I want to create a space for that. Facebook was not the place.
This is why I was like, I don't think Facebook is the one, but I'm glad it brought us together.
Exactly. And like through that, I also felt confident enough to create my own breathwork workshops because I own a company called Solar Space, which is where most of my wellness events are. But like we have Black Joy Wellness as kind of like a sister project, a sister organization. But yeah, I did like a breathwork event last year for Black and brown people. And then from that, I think both of us were like, hang on, we can actually do this like as a thing, and like let's talk about how we can collaborate. So yeah,
I think that was such a turning point. Like I just want to say, when I came to your event, I think it was in April because it was like just about springtime, getting kind of sunny, and it was a Soma breathwork event, and I had never done Soma breathwork before, so it was my first time doing it. And she also had like sound healing and a guided meditation. And it was just a very profound experience for me. I think I was going through a time where I was just so overwhelmed with life. Like I had just done my teacher training. So I was trying to cover yoga classes like all across London. I would be traveling all around London just to like get that experience to teach. And I was working full time as a pharmacist in the mental health team. I was doing a postgrad diploma. So I was just in this space where I was like, life is so overwhelming. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And then when I came there, it almost felt like an epiphany. I was like, this is what I kind of want to do. Like I want to hold spaces like this with people like this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make an intentional choice to gravitate more towards that. And part of that was like, okay, I'm going to make a note and reach out to Georgie. And yeah.
Wow.
I think ever since that, we've both just become a bit more confident with creating those spaces, both, you know, together
individually and
individually.
together. Yeah.
So what is Soma
breath?
I'll probably within our chat ask you, because you know I'm not that familiar with so much like some of the jargon that might be used, and I'm sure some people, you know, watching and stuff might not know as well. But
not many people know about it really, but like in general there are loads of different schools of breath, and I just wanted to say like breath work like stems from pranayama. It stems from like, you know, the traditional yogic breath work, but now all these schools are popping up that kind of incorporate different types of breath work. I just so happened to get on board Soma breath, which is a type of breath work where you breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then you do breath holds after the exhale and after the inhale, which has a lot of like physiological benefits. but there's different types, like conscious, connected, transformational. Like
there's so much I don't even know about.
Yeah, there's so much out there now, and I
Yeah.
think it's quite a new thing. I think it's like quite a trendy thing now, like going to like a breathwork workshop. But it can bring about a lot of release. And I think there's like the other day I assisted a breathwork workshop where people were crying, screaming, shouting, and that was all just like stuff getting released like out of their bodies, like stuff that's been stored deep within for so long. And so it can be really transformational.
Yeah, because even earlier you mentioned, like a lot of our trauma is stored in our bodies. Is there something about movement and, as you say, breath work and, the practice of doing this? Is there something about that kind of releases it? And do you know like any information around how that works? It's a bit technical, but I'd like to try to explore that a bit to understand it.
It's like there's a lot to say about it. We can like,
you go. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. But it's a lot.
There's a lot of research in that area. Let's just say.
But in terms of the first thing I can think of is with breath work, we're teaching our bodies how to have like a positive stress response. So like stress is like literally the main cause of most disease these days, and that can be built up in our body through trauma, through our circumstances, whatever it is. And if we're not releasing that through either movement or breath or just any somatic practice, really, then that stays within us. And that's why, say if you're like triggered by something or you have like a reaction that you're not proud of, that comes from something in the past. That comes from something that you haven't dealt with, right? And we need both the mind and the body working together to heal that, to get out of that, because these are patterns of behavior that are deep within us. And when we, for example, with breath work, that positive stress response, it teaches our body that we are safe when we are stressed. And then that makes our life more manageable. It makes us feel like we're in control of our emotions. And there's so much more I can say. I'm going to pass over to Krista.
No, I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said about it teaches us that we are safe in our bodies. And this really popular book about trauma says a similar thing, like yoga and like these similar holistic practices. They teach people who've experienced trauma in the past to befriend their bodies. Because when you think about someone who's experienced something traumatic or a lot of adversity, there tends to be a lot of dissociation that happens because, being in your body and being in the present is just not a pleasant place to be. So you sort of dissociate. There's a lack of connection between the mind and the body. So practices like yoga, somatics, so somatics being anything to do with the body, and they make you very present, very mindful. And even if you're experiencing like a negative emotion, it almost teaches you to sit with that. And then you realize that it's almost like, it's temporary, isn't it? We're constantly in this ebb and flow. Good emotions, bad emotions. Sometimes we feel good, sometimes we feel bad. But then you notice that, okay, we're constantly fluctuating. But if you just kind of like sit with it, it will pass. So with yoga, breathwork, meditation, mostly a lot of the evidence around it stems from looking at how it regulates our nervous system. So relating to, like Georgia said, the stress response, predominantly through our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the part of your... So with our nervous system, you have two branches, right? You have what people commonly know as the fight or flight response. That's your sympathetic nervous system, right? When you experience a trigger, when you're angry, annoyed, frustrated, like you want to fight or you want to like run away, right? And your heart rate starts to increase. You feel really flushed. You feel hot, like you're ready to go. And then the opposite branch of that is your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's your rest and digest system. Your heart rate slows down. Your blood pressure like starts to fall as well. More digestion. So essentially, you're in a state of calm, right? You feel safe. And these practices usually, for the most part, varies depending on the type of yoga you're doing, but they would like stimulate more your parasympathetic nervous system, so encouraging you to relax, to slow down. And when you think about that system taking over, you have more time to think rationally and act and think about, your choices rather than to just react immediately to any trigger. And we know that these practices actually cause like long-lasting changes in the brain. So they actually change like our brain physiology. And that means that you're not so like in a sense triggered when you encounter something. You can sit back and relax. I think Georgie mentioned like epigenetics and how we can literally inherit trauma, and as Black people we have inherited a lot of trauma from our ancestors, which means that that trauma manifests as like hyperarousal, so being like really on guard, like what was the word I was going to say, persistent fatigue, so just feeling quite tired, just tension, pain, thinking of like inflammation and stress responses. That means that, you know, some black people do have higher rates of some types of cancers, some types of diseases like raised blood pressure. So when we are able to like break those patterns and rewire our brains and our nervous systems, then overall we're healthier both mentally and physically.
That makes a lot of sense. And just thinking about, you know, the last few years, I guess, with the rise of mental well-being, physical well-being, and even, I guess, spiritual, because I guess a lot of what we're speaking about, there is a big link there as well, if you would like to kind of look at it that way. And for me personally, I guess with these kind of stress and crisis factors that have come into play for, you know, the world essentially, how do we kind of tap into these spaces and places and these type of healing mechanisms to try to allow us to kind of come away from these kind of statistics around mental well-being? And you know, it's really challenging, you know, the times that we've kind of encountered post 2019 and just like thinking about that, even that time period. I don't know about you guys, but you know, sometimes when I'm thinking of the last couple years, it feels like there's like a gap there as well. You know, like it feels like, oh, what really happened there or whatever. And I think
It's like
loads
a
of
glitch
people
in the matrix almost.
yeah, loads of people feel that way. And I guess for me, that how do we use these holistic practices to try to heal and kind of, as you're speaking about, because those benefits that you guys just explained to me is mind-blowing. You know, like I didn't know most of what you both just said to me. And I guess for a lot of people even listening and tuning in, like this is something probably they would like to do, but how do we kind of access even you guys' space, for instance? So I know you said that you run sessions and stuff, but how can someone also come to like some of your sessions, for instance?
Well, on Instagram, we are Black Joy X Wellness. So if you look on our page, then we advertise our regular events. But I also recommend going on to certain spaces like Babes on Waves. They have a lot of like, for example, like BPOC book club and like different holistic wellness events that they do, and just like different projects. Like there's actually so much out there now, like
especially in recent years.
in recent years. And I think there's, like you were talking about that shift after 2020, 2021. And I think from that has actually been a positive shift towards people exploring wellness more, because we noticed that when we had more space during COVID, we had more space to explore what we wanted to do in the hobbies. And whilst it was challenging in many ways, it also allowed us that opportunity to do things that we haven't done before and to create that stillness in that space. And I think that's what it's all about. It's because we live in a world right now, we're so distracted all the time. We have constant like dopamine hits by looking on social media and by looking at notifications and by looking at in the world around us and TV news. It's just so overwhelming. And so we need to cultivate space for ourselves, not just in community and in events such as ours, but also noticing how you can integrate that in your day to day. Because I think we don't want to be burnt out and then have to do yoga or breath work to make up for that. We want to be able to integrate meditative practices throughout our day, whether it be like walking without your phone and just looking around and observing what's around you, or looking on sitting on the bus or train and just looking around you, just looking at the people and observing and just being present with the smells and the sights and what you're hearing and seeing. I think that's far more important. And obviously the community aspects that we're talking about, I think that comes hand in hand. Like if you have the community, then you feel safer to then go away and explore that yourself, and that space and stillness and presence. So yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I think that's beautiful. And I love that you're emphasizing, of course, we want people to come to our events, but like, we don't want people to just come to our events. We really hope that it's a gateway for people to explore more. So like, of course, come to our events. We usually have like maybe one a month, or one like every couple of months, and you can find out about that on our like social media. So Black Joy X Wellness, we usually have it up on Eventbrite, and that's how people would get tickets. Georgie has like amazing breathwork, meditation and yoga events herself.
As does Krista.
I also run like events as well, so join in on that. And like, you know, don't be scared to seek out those spaces. Like, search for it on Instagram. There's lots of pages that will have, like Georgia said, it can be a book club, it can even be like Black Girls Hike if you want to get more into like outdoors. So don't be discouraged if like there's a hobby you want to try, and like when you look it up on Google or on like social media you don't see yourself represented. Like, trust that you're showing up will inspire others to do the same, because that's literally how this has happened. And emphasizing that don't wait at a point where you are burnt out to, I guess, make your wellness a priority. It's about making a priority from the beginning. So hopefully you avoid being burnt out, and you have these tools to deal with any challenges and any stressors. And also, it's just nice to not feel alone, like you have someone to go and do something new with, to discuss stuff with. So yeah,
I guess thank you so much for that as well, you know. So it's not just about you guys' space, which is a beautiful and needed space, but you know, like those steps to everyday life, as you've put it. I guess that is the approach that, you know, someone that has never done it before, for instance, that could be a big tip for them to even start to making their way towards a space like you guys, or the opposite way around kind of thing, as you've explained.
And also, wellness practices might not be for everyone. Like, I think we receive things when we're ready to receive things. And like, if yoga and breathwork and sound healing aren't for you, then there's so much out there.
Exactly.
Like you're talking about, you know, the hiking, and like there's Kes camps, and there's just so much out there. Kes camps is like a camping group just for Black and brown people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm actually going this summer. I'm
That's
really
so cool.
excited.
See, this is what we mean. Like, unless speaking to people, you can find out about new things. And again, like, there's so many different types of yoga, breathwork, meditation. So if you try one and it doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. Like, don't be scared to try something else. Maybe you will resonate with something that's slower. Maybe you'll resonate with something that's more dynamic, or just make it your own. Like, you don't have to practice it in the way that somebody else does, or in the way that you see people doing it on social media. Like, you can really make it your own. Like, it's your birthright to like benefit from these practices.
Exactly.
I guess me as well. I have a young child. He's 1.5 next month, and for me, you know, being a first-time mother, there's a lot that comes with motherhood as well, and that journey of motherhood, from pregnancy to giving birth, and I guess just hearing you guys speak about, you know, the practice of, you know, the breath work, the yoga. Is there a way that, you know, mothers as well, specifically, I guess, can use this as a tool for healing? Because sometimes, you know, they speak about it in ways like baby blues, for instance, is a way that they kind of talk about it through the postpartum part, which is once you've given birth, that period of time. And a lot of women don't know where to go to, or what there is that they can do to help that healing process. I guess, is there a link or a way that you can kind of share in terms of how these practices can help in that healing process?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is, I think, as a young mother, as a new mother, or even as a mother in general, like, the best thing that you can do for your child is probably look after yourself. You know, there's saying, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're not looking after yourself, which I completely appreciate, must be difficult to find the time, lots of pressures, but if you're not looking after yourself, it's going to be really difficult to look after somebody else. And I think when we've spoken about Black people and how you were just exposed to more stress, some research has actually shown that mothers, so I think this was a study in the US, so Black African American mothers who were exposed to higher levels of like violent crime from living in like a marginalized area, facing discrimination, that then impacted their pregnancy. So they had higher rates of complications and higher rates of complications giving birth as well, and affected the infant's health compared to their white counterparts. So when we think about these tools, yoga, breathwork, meditation, that can help you to deal with those stressors so that your pregnancy is healthier. There is prenatal yoga, so yoga that you can do whilst you're pregnant, postnatal yoga as well, that you would do like just in the period afterwards. And of course, that's modified, taking into account the changes that your body has gone through. But then it just means that you're overall in a better mental and physical state of mind in order to look after your child.
Yeah, and I think before you were talking about like regulating our nervous systems as well, and I think that's really important when it comes to that kind of maternal, that motherly relationship, because I think we not only need to be like helping ourselves regulate our nervous systems. If we have kids, we want them to feel safe to feel what they feel. And so I think it's important to not only show up for yourself, and by the way, regulating your nervous system doesn't mean like never getting upset, never getting worried. Like we want people to be able to manage like whatever they're feeling, whether that be negative or positive, just like being able to be present with your emotions, and like, you know, I'm feeling a bit stressed, but that's okay. That's life. I'm not going to feel stressed all the time. This is all temporary. Like you were saying, this too shall pass, right? But yeah, if your kid is like expressing an emotion, being like, okay, this is okay. Let me help you feel safe feeling this emotion as well. And when we have that relationship with our kids, then we also learn it ourselves. And it can be hard, but yeah.
I heard there's baby yoga as well. Is that a thing?
There's baby yoga, yeah.
I heard there's baby yoga as well, yeah.
There is baby yoga. I haven't been, obviously.
Yeah, neither have I.
But I think I did go to yoga class when I was like 5 years old. I remember doing like
so
like
cool.
the tree and the rainbow, and like it was,
I have seen I think
cute.
I have seen on Instagram classes like for obviously like the mums and the like toddlers, and I think this was actually facilitated by a Black teacher, which I just thought was so cool, because again, you're speaking of that like representation, and it just means that you're targeting more diverse audiences. And it was adorable, like when you said you 5-year-old Georgie doing a tree, I was like, actually I've seen this somewhere. And I was thinking of like little toddlers doing the poses, and it's just fun for them. And I think they really illustrate how I think they illustrate like a playfulness that I want a lot of adults who come to yoga to like adopt. Like we tend to take things so seriously when we fall out of poses, we get frustrated, we get upset, and it's just like it's all just practice, it's all just fun. Like as long as you're having a good time, it's not about the poses, but just like being in that moment and like expressing joy, because that's what we like want to be all about.
That is so true. Yeah, and I think just one more thing is there's an organization called Urban Yogis UK, and they teach yoga to like community centers and just like basically teenagers and young people who might be struggling with their home situation. And it's an amazing way to like, the moment that you get them to like just even breathe, just one breath in presence is a beautiful thing. And I think it's beautiful to teach kids how to deal with their own emotions, because sometimes it can feel so overwhelming if you don't know how to. As a young kid, you're like,
and you carry that
feeling
into
this big
adulthood,
emotion,
don't you?
yeah. And if you don't learn how to deal with it as a young kid, then as you said, you take that with you. So
Definitely. I just even seeing generally when I'm outside. And you know, like nowadays with children generally, there's a lot of stresses around, and as you mentioned, distractions, and I guess the way that we grew up, you know, the not having as much social media and all these other elements that add pressure, I guess, for a lot of these younger people, and being able to just regulate their emotions, like what they actually feel, because I guess all these other outside factors a lot of the time can contribute to self as well.
Absolutely.
And like knowing thyself, you know, like understanding what does that actually mean. And I guess, as you say, from a young age, in a way, it's kind of like children's innocence is kind of becoming less and less a normal thing, just by what I observed of like around the world nowadays, especially the Western world. And I guess even in the Western world, you spoke a bit about like pharmaceuticals as well. I know like a lot of the time when people are going through a lot of a hard time, you know, depression, stresses, which is normal as well. We're all on the spectrum of with our mental health.
Yeah, it is a spectrum.
And I guess how can we kind of look at this holistic practice? Like how could I've heard there's social prescriptions, for instance.
Yeah,
like how do we kind of
I forgot that was a thing.
how do we kind of get towards more of that way of living, rather than, you know, take this antidepressants, or, you know, take this some sort of pill usually.
Yeah. And like obviously like medication has its role 100%, but I think as like healthcare professionals, or if you're a doctor or pharmacist, like whatever your role, or even as an individual, it's so important to adopt a holistic approach to your wellness. So absolutely, if you are going through a period where you are having depressive symptoms or experiencing high levels of anxiety and it's impacting your functioning, you're struggling to manage, by all means, like there does come a point where you need to see like a doctor, a GP, or get like another referral to specialist mental health services. And that's why I would just say it's so important that we have these conversations, because when you feel that you can talk about it openly, you're more likely to get help, right? But when it's stigmatized, then you don't seek help and you're suffering alone. And it's just really hard to be in that position. When it comes to moving away from, I suppose, medication, like I've obviously worked with patients around their medication and it helps for a time, but I would say, from my view, the intention isn't that you would be on medication like lifelong. If you do, and it depends on the condition, of course. If you do need to be on it longer term, then that's fine. But if you are able to come off it then as well, that's fine. But it's just talking with the patient or the individual and tailoring it to what they want, making sure that they have a say. And even when I'm working with people who are taking lots of medication, I always try to be like, okay, well, how do you spend your day? What do you enjoy doing? What do you like to do? And even if they're struggling to, you know, think of something, because of course, when you're going through a tough time, quite frankly, there's not many things you enjoy doing. You don't have any motivation to do anything. And that's like a symptom that perhaps your mental health is deteriorating. So then you might need to just explore that a bit more. Like, let's go back. Okay, what did you used to do? Did you used to study? Did you used to work? And then you might find out that, oh, actually, I enjoyed drawing. I enjoyed swimming. How can we come back to that? Or even that's something that can be explored in like psychological therapies, through counseling. Social prescribing is on the rise. So I can't remember on the top of my head if GPs can like make social prescriptions, but if you are part of like a mental health team, we would have like specifically social prescribers who would explore activities with you and like give you a prescription to be like, okay, go swimming 3 times a week or twice a week. And like, you know, I don't know in how much detail the prescription is, but it might be that they also tell you how long you should do it for, or some people do like having things in a lot of detail. So it might be like, what day of the week, where am I going, just to like make it really materialize rather than just abstract, yeah, I'm going to go swimming this week. And that really helps people to form plans. So the emphasis is just working with people, seeing them as an individual rather than a prescription or like a condition, if they do have a diagnosed mental health condition, and just working from there.
Yeah, and there's something called the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance as well, which does 12-week courses. And it's like, yeah, like for people with preconditions, it's like the most beneficial thing. It's like before we jump straight to the medication, before that is our first port of call, we need to look at, like Krista said, look at the person holistically and think about their lifestyle, what's going on for them. And I think in the West, we're so used to, okay, I got a headache, let me take some paracetamol. And it's like, well, hang on, let's just like think about everything else that we could do, because medication is not the be all and end all. It has its purposes and it's really beneficial in many ways, but we need to look at wellness in a more holistic way, think about what we're eating, what we're consuming. And when I say what we're consuming, like what we're watching, what we're listening to, who we're talking to, what energy we're giving to conversations. what we're doing, what movement we're doing, how we're breathing. Everything matters, you know, everything has leaves a trace, and it's about looking at the whole person.
Yeah, because I personally also have come across people, you know, that medication has, you know, sometimes been addictive or in ways ruined their lives. Of course, as you say, medication has helped a lot of people too. I'm not for or against medication, you know, so I'm just saying, like, based on some of the experience I've seen, it's quite interesting the different impacts, you know, of both of the different ways of living works. And personally for myself, I've seen that, you know, like holistic practices have brought me a more balanced life, I guess, and a more openness to, you know, exploring alternative, because it feels like holistic practices and nature and all of these types of things are alternative. It's not really something mainstreamy.
Complementary as well. Like, I think if you actually do look at the evidence when it comes to, let's take, for example, antidepressants, the intention is always that it's combined with like psychological therapy. It's combined with a social intervention. So I think, Georgie, you mentioned like the lifestyle or like the diet, or even thinking about, is there any stresses in their living situation that could be contributing? Let's address that. So the intention isn't that medication will cure things. It's just that hopefully it will address any like irregularities that might be happening in the brain, so that you can better address the like stresses in the day-to-day life that are like contributing to your mental health condition or your mental health state at that particular time.
Yeah, so you spoke about like the sisters kind of only space as well. What kind of ceremonies or stuff do you guys do in these types of sessions, I guess?
I've got a big smile on my face because I'm so excited about this event. It's going to be our first sister circle, and it's going to involve a cacao ceremony. It's going to involve meditation, visualization, a sharing circle. We're going to have a specific theme yet to be decided, which we're going to like basically just go around the circle and just share whatever you want to share. It's just an opportunity for people to connect with each other and to be open and honest about how they're feeling, what's going on with them recently. And the cacao ceremony is going to be amazing. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony to open your heart, because cacao naturally does have like heart opening properties. It kind of makes you more open to receive that like intuitive wisdom that you have. And
am I right to say cacao is the bean?
It's so it's like a cacao plant.
Oh, plant.
Oh, no, sorry, not plant, fruit.
Okay,
and within the fruit, you have the cacao seeds that become chocolate. So when you take the cacao seeds out of the fruit, what you have to do is you have to dry them out, and then you have to basically like crush them, and then they mix with milk, it becomes chocolate basically. But we just use like pure ceremonial cacao, mix it with like maybe a plant-based milk, maybe a bit of cinnamon and a bit of spices. But
that sounds great. What's some of the benefits to you doing that kind of ceremony as well, I guess?
I haven't done a cacao ceremony yet, but so Georgie might be able to know more, but like she's mentioned, like heart opening. So I think it just makes you more able to share from an authentic place. I think naturally as human beings, whether that's from like conditioning or the way we're raised, we tend to be a bit guarded. Especially if you're like in an unfamiliar situation, like you might share maybe 40 or 30% of what you're really thinking. So my understanding is that it just makes you more willing to share and more receptive, I think, to receiving like energy from other people. So it'd be in like a safe space where we're really tapping into our inner wisdom and our creativity and our femininity as well. So that's why we wanted this space to be like exclusively women. So I don't know what else.
Yeah, and then also we're going to have an external facilitator come in. She's called Salome. She's beautiful woman who knows so much about astrology. So she's going to be sharing her insights about like the energy of the day, you know, kind of validating a few of our experiences that might be more collective than individual.
Cool. Yeah. So how does astrology play a part in that? Because that was interesting that you said specifically that, you know, she's that's her kind of field of expertise.
Yeah, well, I think it's all interlinked. Like whenever we're feeling like, I'm not going to say that astrology is like the only reason why we feel certain things, but there is a lot in the ether and in the universe that has an effect on the way that we interpret life and how we feel day to day. And like, I mean, I don't know much about it, hence why we're getting an expert in.
An external expert.
Yeah, but it has a lot to do with just like the ebbs and flows of our life, and same like with the moon and the phases of the moon. And we are nature. Human beings are nature. We are part of nature. We have rhythms. We have circadian rhythms, ultradian rhythms, and all of those have an effect on how we show up and how we feel in our bodies and in our minds.
I guess also the fact that it's a feminine only kind of space as well. I know you said tapping into your femininity. I guess even on my own journey with that, that space, I guess, will be really, really useful because, women only spaces, I guess it's becoming more popular now, but just thinking about it, I don't really remember ever like growing up and there's like a girls only group or sports or like recreational stuff, but I don't remember like going to a space and it's like only girls here unless it's like, as I say, recreational and stuff, but that importance of that femininity, because I guess it is said that we live in a matriarchal. Is it matriarchal?
Matriarchal, yeah. Matriarchy.
We're moving away from the patriarchy. And we love that. We really do. I think it's so important, especially like as women of color, like our experience can be very different to like, like our white counterparts. There's a lot of experiences that we will be exposed to that not everyone can relate to. So the intention with these spaces is that when you share something, maybe somebody else has experienced the same thing, you won't feel judged. And I think even thinking of like the media, for so long we were fed this like narrative and this story that like Black women weren't attractive, or that like Eurocentric features were what were considered beautiful, like if you had a thinner nose, thinner lips, and things that most like ethnic or Black women wouldn't naturally have. So it's taken a long time, I think, to like reclaim that beauty. Even like thinking of our hair, like I remember growing up and all of my favorite people on like the internet or on TV had straight hair, and I would wish that I had straight hair. And it took so long for me to come to a point where I was like, I actually love the fact that my hair isn't straight. I love the fact that I can wear braids and like have all these versatile styles, and it's just so like representative of my background and my origins, and that makes me so happy. So that's like one of the examples of how powerful and significant these spaces are for women of color.
And I think Black women predominantly step into their masculine energy quite a lot, especially if they're mothers. They step into their masculine energy so much, and that's the more kind of assertive power kind of dynamic. But I think it's important that we also step into our feminine, and that's kind of the more creative, intuitive, nurturing side of ourselves. And we need a balance of both. We need a balance of both the masculine and the feminine. But when we create spaces with just women, we create a safe space for women to tap into their feminine, because sometimes it can feel unsafe to do so in this world that is so dominated by the masculine. Not only literally masculine people, but also masculine energy.
Yeah, no, for me, I definitely would say tapping into my feminine has helped me a lot in my own personal journeys too. So I hope many more women start to connect more with that side of them. And as you say, feel safe to do that as well, because I think that is one of the biggest reason why a lot of women aren't really tapping into their feminine. So is there something about a women's circle, women only circle, that you guys, your own personal stories that you might be open to sharing, that you might have been impacted on being in a women only kind of space?
That's a good question. I've been to a couple of women's circles, but I've actually found it more profound when it's Black women's circles. And I recently went to a yoga class just for Black and brown people, and it so happened that at the end, only the women that were in that class stayed behind to talk to each other. And it was like what my soul had been needing for so long. Like, just genuinely being there to talk to people and to connect with people. Because I think in this world, especially in London, because we're so fast paced, when we're meeting up with friends, it's like usually for a catch up, and it's like, okay, how much can we squeeze into this small amount of time that we have? Whereas when you actually cultivate that space for people just to talk, it's just so special, and it feels so much more authentic and grounding and present than planning to just meet up for a catch up, you know?
I would say I'm thinking of like the self-love event that we had, which was open to like both men and women, but it just so happened to like all be women of color. And of course it's a bit different because I guess in that instance, like we were facilitating. So there's a degree of like, you know, making sure that things are going okay. But I think like as we went through the room and at this event, we had people like share and write down things that they loved about themselves, and some of the responses that people came up with, I was like, this is just so beautiful and heartwarming. And I think actually thinking back to it now, it was tapping into like, I guess the very feminine energy. Like it felt very nurturing. So some of the things people said were things like, I love my empathy for others, I love my joy, I love like how forgiving they are with other people, or I love like self-care, prioritizing my needs. And thinking, like Georgia said, as Black women especially, we tend to be forced to step into like that masculine energy or like that strong Black woman stereotype, but it's not necessarily because we always want to be strong. We've just not really had any other choice. So I just felt that in that moment it was like, okay, well, I had a few moments where I was like, I can kind of like relax my shoulders. I don't need to like be so like, oh yeah, I'm tough, I've got it covered, I'm put together. It's just like, it's fine. And like some of the women got emotional, and that was just so beautiful. There was just no judgment at all. If you wanted to share, then we're here for you, we're listening. If you don't want to share as well, that was totally fine. So I'm really looking forward to this one, especially because we have an external facilitator. So Georgia and I are looking forward to, I guess, immersing ourselves a bit more within the circle.
Wow, thank you so much, guys. And I guess one piece of advice you could give for women of color into that feminine, feminine and nurturing spirit, being a big part of the culture and can help them create abundance in life. You know, what would that be? You know, seeking that joyful life.
It's a beautiful question.
Yeah, I think I would say just a reminder that you are more capable than you believe to experience a softer life. I think we are so used to not doing that, and we need to step into our softness. So yeah.
I think that was just so perfect. Like, can I copy that? Yeah, honestly, I feel like I really just need to constantly remind myself, like, I deserve a soft life, just in the sense of like, things can be easy. We have this like belief that we have to struggle before attaining the reward, and it's almost like, oh, if I didn't struggle first, like I don't deserve the reward, or we can feel really guilty about taking rest. So I think, you know, it's easier said than done, but like, don't feel guilty, don't feel that you have to like justify your rest. Like you're not defined especially by your achievements, because I've struggled with that a lot, like feeling that I was only the sum of like the things that I've achieved, and it's like without that then I would be like questioning my worth or questioning my value. But it's like, I'm enough as I am, independent of like my job or like the things that I've accomplished, just like as a virtue of being like an individual, of being a Black woman. Like I'm enough. So be unapologetic about doing the things that bring you joy, whether that's yoga, wellness, spending time with friends, or like going out in nature, feel the grass beneath your toes, feel the sun on your face, travel, just like do what makes you happy and be very unapologetic about that.
Yeah, and don't dim your light as well. Don't dim your light.
Wow, some really good advice there. Thank you so much for that. And I guess the final question is, how can people find out more about you and your services?
So our Instagram is blackjoyxwellness. We don't have a website yet,
Not yet.
but you can find all our events on there. My Instagram is Solar Space. That's SOULAR, so like solar space. So you can also find what I do and also what Black Joy does on there, and then I'll get Krista to share hers.
So I think we already mentioned the Black Joy Instagram page, so definitely check that out. My Instagram is Ceola Chris, and then it's like an underscore, so Ceola is SEOLA, Chris, CHRIS, and Ceola is just a term that represents like the sea but also the soul, because previously the soul was understood to like originate from the sea, and I've just always felt like a really strong connection to the sea and the ocean, so that's what it represents for me. And I also have another page to host like my other events, and I'm working on offering like more online videos, like online yoga classes and like holistic videos, so that would be Ceola Wellness, also on Instagram. And yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
I'm so fortunate to be able to be facilitating this podcast here. If you are able to donate to Paper Garden, that would be truly appreciated to help them give back more to the community.